The story begins with a lady finding the man that she was supposed to marry whispering words of love to someone else. They stood in a corner and held each other close. They acted as if saying hello was a waste of precious time and quickly kissed each other. Their hands didn't stop moving. She felt like she was nailed in place, she couldn't do anything. But watch the whole scene unfold before her eyes, because the person with her fiancé was the person closest to her. Her cousin, or maybe she couldn't move because her cousin wasn't a woman. Yavanna Boat was a typical young noblewoman. She had a pretty face. But in a pleasantly plain way, she wasn't the child of a particularly renowned family. So the mothers of eligible young noblemen paid no attention to her. But her body was an exception. In a time where the fashion of the day cherished low bustlines, her shapely figure drew much attention. Men would sneak furtive glances as they greeted her. Some would shamelessly gawk at her outright. Around that time, she began to detest men for being all the same, but that changed when she met Gaspar, the son of the Duke of Guise. The young baron knew that her family had gained their title solely through their summoning abilities. He also knew that Yavanna was a summoner herself. The fact that he never looked at her body or acted immaturely around her made her believe he saw her for who she is. She had only studied the summoning arts, so that her father would pay attention to her. She studied harder, thinking that the baron would like her even more. However, he had his moments when he would spiral into a rage. He hated the fact that he was being compared to Azentine. The nobles would laugh at him and say the emperor should consider passing the throne to him rather than to his only nephew. The emperor of Parma Empire had only one offspring, a daughter, therefore the emperor's nephew Gaspar was named as the candidate to inherit the throne. However, Gaspar was unable to stand out in any kind of way. Claude Azentine, the Duke of Azentine, had made a name for himself in many ways, gaining the admiration of both royalty and peasants alike. After he slowly calmed down from his tantrum, he told Yavanna that she will dedicate herself to him. She closed her eyes and pondered for a moment, then exclaimed yes. She would have done anything to help him, and as Gaspar's fiancée, she dedicated herself to serving him by summoning divine beasts in his name. As a result, people began to call him the Golden Summoner. The Baron was like the sun to her shadow, the stronger and brighter he shines the clearer she became. But he wasn't satisfied. Claude Azentine, he is the keeper of the Holy Sword. Prophesied centuries ago, since a child, the Duke was renowned for his incomparable skills and attributes. So it was practically impossible for Baron Gaspar to compete. Gaspar grabbed her shoulder and exclaims that he heard there's a secret text handed down in the Boat family. A book that details how one can gain great magical powers that allow a person to summon the greatest divine beast and keep them manifested for a long periods of time. However, all who have attempted the ritual have met tragic ends. They were either killed off by the resulting effects, or if they survived the ritual, they're tormented by horrible disease for the rest of their lives. She knew the results of what would happen and expected him to understand, but instead he squeezed her shoulders tightly and stated that she said she would live for him, and commands her not to hesitate. After that day, the Gaspar stopped coming to see her. The army of the demons were attempting to resurrect its master, and the Duke of Azentine was preparing his forces. If the King of Demons is resurrected, they'll all be in danger. The man she loved the most and her cousin Tristan, who was always kind to her. She believed that she needed to protect them, so she made a magic circle of protection. If she succeeded in casting the spell, she would gain immense magical powers needed to summon the King of Divine Beasts. However, if she failed, she would lose her life. She activated the circle, and for a brief moment she believed she had succeeded. Then the circle became red. Her face was instantly infested with sores and spots. She coughs blood and her body was in pain. She stares at her body and realized that this was a fool's errand. She fainted repeatedly. She woke up and felt an immense power inside of her, but her face became hideous. Her entire body hurts and it became hard for her to breathe. She knew she was going to die soon. Later on, the knights looked at her in disgust. Gasper introduced her as his assistant who would help him use his magical powers. They murmur among themselves, they looked at her with pity and contempt. But she thought it was all right as long as she could be of help to the Baron. She had summoned the king of divine beasts and gave the Baron the credit. He marched around on a horse being praised by everyone. As she looked at him from an alleyway covered in bandages, Gasper got what he wanted and was named heir to the throne. And that was how he paid her back, by having an affair with her cousin. She thought they were friendly for her sake. Unfortunately, she only found out about this at death's door. She wanted to sneak in for one last look so she wouldn't sadden them with her death. She only wanted to see him sleeping and quietly leave. To make it worse, her so-called fiancé Gasper did not care if she was going to die. To him, she was a summoner for him to use in a uterus to incubate a child to bear the likeness of him and his lover. People say cheating is one thing that cannot be forgiven, but it makes no sense for love to change. He met someone else, but does that mean his feelings for her should have changed? So the only conclusion is he never loved her to begin with. If he had a conscience, he would at least feel guilty or pity for her. However, he felt it was pointless to feel guilty, and the ones they should really feel sorry for are themselves. As they can't marry each other, although they are in love. Those were the last words she heard as she fell unconscious and died. Suddenly she slowly opened her eyes, and she woke up back in her room. She wondered if Gasper had saved her. She planned to quickly escape from there, but as she got up she noticed her body felt light. After the ritual she always had headaches and her legs would go numb randomly, and it was harder to breathe in the morning too. But the most difficult thing to bear was immense magical force always pressing down on her. It is possible that because she artificially gained those powers her body rejected them, which resulted in severe pain. But now all her pain is gone. She looked at her hand, then analyzed her body. Her pus and sores were gone. Now her skin is smooth and soft as it once was. She has traveled back in time before the ritual. She has traveled back a year in time. She tried to make an account of everything that happened to her so far. Although she's traveled back in time, she still has the same problem she had a year ago. First, her inadequate magical power, though that power is gone. The contract she made with the divine beast is still imbued in her soul. However, she can't summon the higher-level divine beast with her current power. Second, the public's opinion of summoners. She didn't become Gasper's shadow solely to help him improve his reputation. It was also to restore honor to summoners as well. It was summoners who helped the demons resurrect their king back to this land. Those few who joined forces with the demon army tarnished the reputation of summoners everywhere. That's why she needed Gasper with his flashy looks and reputation. Rather than her own abominable visage, she lived as a shadow and gave up everything she had to Gasper. Only to find out the cousin she trusted and leaned on used her as a puppet. And even the armies in her side looked at her with scorn. She doesn't want to live a life like that again. So the first thing she needs to do is distance herself from Gasper, but by 20 she was already engaged to him, and he's not the time to take her change of heart as a good enough reason to break their engagement. Marriage among nobility is the joining of households. It's no easy feat to just end an engagement and a whim. Although the dukedom of Guise has fallen out of favor, it is still a dukedom. She has no choice but to make him say he wishes to break off the engagement. Suddenly the maids burst in and inform her that Baron Gasper has arrived. Usually she would be in a panic whenever he comes to visit, but this time it's different. She tells the maids they should get back to work and she only needs Sally to help her. All the maids are shocked, and she tells Sally that she needs to look her best for the Baron and she shouldn't take any shortcuts. She made up all types of excuses to extend the time so he would wait for hours. That's what he deserves, as it is basic manners to inform someone before their visit. But he always barged in frequently without notifying her. To him she was someone who didn't deserve basic manners. In fact, he seemed to enjoy watching her struggle to not offend him. But that's going to change. Sally became exhausted, so Yavanna told her to take a break. Sally asked if she fought with the Baron. She responded that a lady always takes time to get ready. However, while Caspar is fine letting others wait for him, he never allowed anyone to use up his time unwillingly. She thought she could change him by giving him all her love. She thought if she treated him as someone special, he'd do the same. She had no idea that attitude would mark her as a pushover to him. It is now late in the night and he is laying on the couch. He angrily states that she took her sweet time. He was waiting for 10 hours and she tells him that she was being as quick as possible. He is flabbergasted. He inquired if she has lost her mind. She drinks some tea and states that if people were to hear how he addresses her they would think he has no sense of decorum. These were the same words he always used against her. His face became red and he quivered in anger. He angrily exclaims how dare she make him wait and chastise him without apologizing. She tells him not to doubt that she cares for him. He believed that she's finally apologizing. But she only tells him that he should have informed her she was coming. Then she could have been ready to receive him. He is astonished and has no words. He decided to cut to the chase and tells her in 15 days he plans on attending a festival down at South in Morgia. People there are unfamiliar with summoners, so showing a divine beast will be very effective. As a majestic beast like Hearthlet would increase support for their cause. He tells her it's a great opportunity to make his name known in the southern regions. She smiles and tells him to have a safe trip. He grits his teeth in anger. Without her he won't be able to summon anything. She's never gone against his word, not even once. She's nothing to look at and from a failing household. He trained her so her summoning abilities wouldn't go to her head. He thinks he's lucky that she found an excellent fiancé like him although she was born a woman. He believes Tristan is the one that deserves love, yet he'll have to hide in the shadows all his life. Either way, without him she's nothing, as he delusionally thinks that she benefits from his name and from his financial support. He stands up and exclaims that he's heading back home. He walks away and tells her he hopes to get an apology next time. Later on we see an Yavanna father with 2 beautiful women. He orders a servant to bring the jewels that Baron Caspar sent. The servant nervously states that since yesterday Baron Caspar has stopped sending them gifts regularly. The servant informs them according to the maids it seems as if he had a fight with Lady Yavanna. He calls her a useless girl and that she needs to be punished. He spots a carriage in front of his estate, then Tristan gets out of it. Tristan states that he heard from Caspar that he fought with Yavanna. He stopped by to see if he could smooth things over. Tristan believed that she's having a hard time and is crying with regret. However, she is enjoying her time picking blueberries. In the past, after the Demon King was resurrected, many summoners gathered at the Tower of Magic. A site that received immense support from various nations. They research how to increase the fighting power of their allies. The result was the Curadan elixir. It was an elixir that could boost the user's magical powers. But the elixir was completed towards the end of the allies pushing back the demonic force. So there wasn't much chance for it to be used, since she knows what's going to happen in a few years from now. She can get ahead of things, but she will need the Curadan fruit. So she will need to go out and buy it. She takes off her hat and stares at the sky. Her father then arrives and exclaims, "What is she doing?" He tells her her face will get burned and men don't like tan skin. She inquires if her only value is how much men will value her. He exclaims if that isn't obvious. She tells him that it seems the Baron is quite angry with her as she hasn't heard from him in a week. He tauntingly states that was all that she was useful for. Because of her the Baron has cut off all support. He inquires what she's going to do about the things he purchased on credit. She asked if that's her fault. The debt he owes the merchants and others are entirely his fault. He shouts at her and asks if she's crazy. He raises his hand to slap her but Tristan intervenes and tells her that's enough. He holds onto her shoulders and tells her she should be patient. When she was little, her mother couldn't stand her father's abuse anymore and left. After that she was neglected. The only person to show her kindness was her cousin Tristan. He meant the world to her. However, whenever her father abused her or Casper treated her poorly, Tristan always said the same thing, although he is her cousin. He was still her father's nephew or Casper's friend. Therefore he cannot be on any one side, so he must remain neutral. The only time he spoke up was when she was about to be hit. And he always says the same thing. She thinks about it for a moment and realizes that Casper talks a lot but he's not clever enough to scheme and use others. She wondered if everything was Tristan's doing. Tristan tells her that the Baron has a hard time talking about his feelings and she should be the bigger person and apologize first. She thinks if she wants to get out of this situation it's better to use her father and his fiery temper. She asked if he received the gifts he usually gets from the Baron. Her father exclaims of course not. The only reason he got anything is because he's her cousin. And that everyone's suffering because of her. Tristan states that her father is right and Casper has stopped sending him his regular support. She tells them she knows for a fact that the Baron visited him yesterday and shared the gifts he received from the Emperor. Her father grabbed his shoulder and asked if it's true. He states she's mistaken. She exclaims that divine beasts can't lie. She then summons Asula, the divine beast of water and darkness. Tristan is surprised that she could summon such a powerful beast. Asula conjures a portal which shows the Baron with Tristan and boxes of gifts. Frequently a summoned being will react to the summoner's emotions. Tristan asked if she was spying on him. She states that Asula simply scampered after the person she was thinking of the most. But she actually just sent him there to spy on them. She tells her father the real reason she fought with the Baron was because of Tristan. She stated that she suspected that maybe Tristan was plotting something between her and the Baron. She wondered if he used her to become friends with the Baron and was now trying to split them apart so that he could gain more from him. Tristan states they were friends before she met him. And the gifts are just as friends. She lowers her gaze and states that support was cut off to them while he received more gifts than usual. She states that she can't help but suspect him. It works to Tristan's advantage if she remains Casper's fiancé. His lover would become more influential thanks to her summoning. While she would bear a child that looks like them, but he'll never admit that she is Casper's shadow and he is Casper's lover. Because he knows that her father would use that to blackmail and threaten him. Her father then became suspicious of him as well. Tristan cries and his uncle states that he guess he doesn't need his support anymore. She never once called the Baron by his name and they must be extremely close. The father ordered the servants to take him out. He ordered that Tristan will not be allowed there until he says otherwise. She sold her engagement ring and it was worth little to nothing. She can't believe he cares so little for her. The Curadan fruit is smaller than a coin, but if a person eats even one they'll instantly get a stomach ache. They are hard to find because they only grow in the region of the north and the Duke of Azantine stopped all export of the Curadan fruit. Suddenly Tristan calls out to her, but the Baron gives her a side-eye. It seems they're on a date. Tristan grabs Casper's hand and tells him to give her a greeting. Tristan exclaims that he wanted to work out their misunderstandings but he couldn't see her. He states it pained him to realize what she thought of him. He reminded her that she always followed him around when they were kids. He then tries to help her with her basket but she tells him it's none of his concern. Casper shouts that she shouldn't be rude to her cousin. He exclaims that she hurt Tristan, and now he can't even see his own uncle because of her. He blames her for everything. He states she must realize how generous he's been with everything he's giving her, but the only gift she ever received was a cheap ring after begging for it. Compared to what he had received it's nothing. She states if this is how they wish to talk she has nothing to say. She then holds out her hand and summons a giant white wolf Hearthlet. The people murmur and states that it's Baron Casper's divine beast. The way things are going people may realize that Hearthlet is Yavanna's divine beast. The people then recognize Yavanna as his fiancé. He realizes he has no choice but to find a different summoner. He tells her he's sorry and asks her to come down so they can talk. She asked if he's sure he wants to talk when she's being so cruel to her sweet cousin. He then exclaims that he only cares about Tristan because he's her cousin. But she's the one he's going to marry, but he thinks Tristan was being rude to her. Tristan lowers his head and grits his teeth. She tells him to show her proof that he cares more about her than Tristan. The Baron states that he has no way with words. She states that she wants to hear the words from his mouth desperately. He states that there are too many people around and he'll tell her when they are alone. She pretends to cry and states that he doesn't really love her. He glances at Tristan's teary eyes and becomes angry. He then points to her cousin Tristan and states they should do it later as Tristan is there. She exclaims that Tristan would be relieved to see them happy together. Tristan wonders why she's acting this way, as if she's realized everything that's happening. He holds Gasper's shoulder and tells him to tell her how much he loves her. He hesitates but exclaims that he loves her. She then states that she can't quite hear him if he could repeat it again. He shouts that he loves her. She glances at her cousin and noticed his downcast expression. She states that she's so happy that she wants to make one more request. He gets angry again and tells her to be reasonable. She asked if he just got mad at her. He nervously states that he wasn't angry. She states that he heard the king gave him Iphilia's blessing not long ago and she wants it as a gift. Iphilia's blessing is no ordinary jewel, it is named after Iphilia, a female knight who won the love of a king overcoming their unequal stations in life. According to the legend, this jewel was imbued with power to overcome any obstacle when it comes to love. Outside the court, people have been talking about difference in station between her and Gasper. The emperor specifically gifted Gasper the jewel for that very reason. However, her past self didn't even know about the existence of Iphilia's blessings. She's sure Gasper gave it to Tristan, and justified it by saying they're the ones who cannot get married. He tried to retort but she tells him she'll be waiting. And dashes away at full speed. Later that day she tried making the elixir. But it didn't turn out how she wanted. She doesn't know the method to make it, but thought it would work because she used the same ingredients. Also, Gasper sent her gifts except for Iphilia's jewel. She hoped he would break off the engagement if she asked for it. She then remembered that to solve both her problems, she will need the Duke of Azantine. In the Parama Empire, unwed people are seen as incompetent. They believe that two people coming together makes them whole. Because of this, most people get married before they receive any consideration in society as an adult. While Claude has made a name for himself as a keeper of the Holy Sword, he is still unwed, which prompts people to say that he's only half a duke. He's 25, but in her previous life she found out the reason why. In the past at the camp, she went to hide to get away from people. She feared their gazes more than the evil creatures they fought. She hid behind the bushes, then she noticed the Duke. A young lady had embraced him and announced her love for him. Even if she can spend the night with him, that will be enough to make her happy. He abruptly pushes her away and in a cold tone states that she's not satisfied with her life being saved. And now she expects even more from him. The girl is taken aback and begins to cry as she dashes away. He exclaimed if she doesn't know what a burden love is. He questions if it will end if he simply get married. But it wouldn't solve anything unless he were to wed someone who has no need to share cumbersome feelings with him. For him, it would be nice to marry a woman who does not love him. In every village they've passed women threw themselves at him and each time he refused. Meanwhile, the other soldiers easily opened their hearts to women. And when the time came, abandoned them as if nothing had happened. They laughed at women who clung to them, who begged to know when they'd meet again. They made a mockery of their feelings compared to that. The Duke of Azantine seemed less cruel, his refusal or inability to return any affections was better for them. The Duke was not a kind man, but he knew how to respect others. While Gasper was busy in the war, she had been summoning too many magical beasts, which caused the magical power she had gained to tear her body. She could barely breathe and was in a lot of pain. She became dizzy, then the Duke held her and stated that he'll send her someplace safe. He lifted her in his arms, and tears started to form in her eyes. Even the people who pitied her wouldn't dare get close to her or touch her, as if she was afflicted with a contagious disease, but not him. He was indifferent but treated everyone equally. Although she found herself repulsive, he was able to treat her as any other human being. While Gasper, who treated her as just a tool for his ambitions. The Duke Azantine would at least treat her like a human being if they were married. There will be a ball in the Duke's honor during this year's Festival of Iphilia. It's held every year in Parima. Spring is when Iphilias flower, a symbol of love, is in full bloom. So that is why the festival is named after her. During this festival, young women of lower classes are allowed to declare their love to those above them. So she'll confess to the Duke during the festival. But all her dresses she owns right now are either out of fashion or falling apart. This is the result of being patient to avoid her father's hate. But she has saved money because there weren't enough Caridian fruit to purchase.